You can turn it up. Right? Phil, how do you turn this on? I'll speak.
Ready to turn up the mic?
Rant at home and get upset because of the state of where this country is going. I have to. I listen to shows that probably I should not listen to because they aggravate me more than help me, like the Michael Savage show and a few other ones that are hot rush and high conservative shows, because they point out all the problems of this country. And so I get so angry to the point of to where I want a punching bag. You know, I'm so upset. You know, and I don't think it's doing my health any good, and I don't think it's following Scripture. And I'm going to go through this because this is really a soul-searching thing, because this is really, I think, it affects all of us here and how we look at the world and how we live our daily lives, because in a lot of ways we worry about things that we have no control over. In America today, we believe we have freedom. Yes, we have freedom to travel, we have commerce, ownership, but they're built into frameworks that are controlled by our government. We really don't have true freedom based on what our founding fathers envisioned or what Jehovah, Yahweh, sees as our freedom, because, of course, as you read through the Tanakh, I believe one of the overriding principles of the Tanakh is to be free from oppression. That's what the law is based on. So we want freedom. And we get aggravated, or at least I do. I'm going to speak for all of us. I get aggravated on the state of where this country is going. And I need to stop and consider. So let's just consider the state of this country. We have a lot of the issues here. We don't really own our home and land. Either the banks or the mortgage companies do. Even if we own our properties outright, we still pay property taxes to our local government. Try not paying your local property tax and see who really owns your land. We don't have freedom of speech anymore because huge companies and the FCC own electronic airwaves. We have to be careful as to what we write and print, because that could later be used against us in either a criminal or civil trial. And sometimes a civil trial is just as bad as a criminal, because you can go bankrupt from a civil trial, especially if you have any assets. And I think what made me really furious in the last week or two, there's a student at the University of Florida who asked John Kerry a question. He asked John Kerry a question about the 2004 election, and he was questioning why Kerry did not contest the Ohio part of the election, the ballots. It was a real close election, just like in 2000 with Bush and Gore. This was not quite as close, but he asked this question. But what the news media did not show, which you'll find on YouTube or some other areas, he went a little further than he probably should have, and he asked Kerry the question, did you not contest the election because you felt that's because you and Bush are part of the Skull and Bones Society going back to your days at Yale? So are you part of a group together? So is that why you didn't really want to contest this? At that point that he asked the question, he immediately gets followed by two police officers who basically manhandle him outside the stage, or outside of the center, and continue to push him out the door. And there was 2 or 3 other cops that came, and they basically pinned this guy down and handcuffed him. And at the point where he wasn't even really resisting, and he even tells them not to, they tased him. And he even told them, don't tase me, please, don't tase me. And then he did. And some would say he was a jerk, he went out of turn, he spoke too long. But do we have, in this country, do we not have freedom to speak? Even if, and does that what we went through, does that justify this improper arrest? Because it was truly not according to anything in the Constitution or anything to where he had a right to be arrested. So it really angered me. And my wife said to me, because she could see I was distraught, she says, you need to understand, as you always tell me, honey, we are in captivity. And if we're in captivity and we look at it from that mindset, we then don't challenge the government. We don't go up and try to challenge a public official like this kid did in the University of Florida, because the same thing will happen to us. So do we have any peace of mind knowing that the once great United States of America that we're in today is not the same blessed land of freedom to where we could go out in the public square and challenge the government? We need to understand some things based upon tonight, because I think it'll make our minds more at ease. And let me finish here on this part of where we are in this country. We don't have a right to travel without having a driver's license, vehicle registration, vehicle inspections, in some cases paying for vehicle property taxes. We have to stop at more vehicle checkpoints across the country, all to protect us against drunk drivers. We get patted down and frisked whenever we have to fly, which really aggravates me to the point where I don't even want to fly on a plane, because I do not want to get patted down. I don't want to go to a football game. Not that I like football anymore, because I could care less about that, but I get patted down if I go to a football game, all for the name of security. And there's a big difference between the word security and the word freedom. They're not the same. Because if you want security, you're not going to have freedom. But if you want freedom, you give up your security. We don't have freedom of privacy from those who want to know about our finances, our interests, our purchases, and our family. We don't have freedom from government confiscation of our income and our assets to expand a growing national and international welfare state. And the international welfare state is as big as the welfare state of this country. We're giving more money outside the country than what we have here. Nor do we have protection from the overly abused eminent domain laws. And as you know, in the last year and a half, the government now can take your property all for the economic interest. It's no longer to build a bridge or a road or a school or something for the greater good of society. It's now to basically expand the economic power of our government by being able to get more taxes from a bigger entity. And if they get more taxes from some big corporation like a Home Depot or a Walmart, they're going to let the Walmart or Home Depot take your property. Even if you've had that property for 50 years as an investment, they're going to take it from you because it's in the greater economic interest for them. So that's the state of our country. I could go on and on about our loss of freedoms. That's not the point of this whole discussion this morning. And I bet you could think of some other examples yourself, but I think I made my point. Let me stress that we live in the most free nation in the world, even with all these loss of freedoms. So what does the Tanakh say is the key to being protected in this day and age from forces that are out to enslave us further? Before I answer that question, let me tell you what others think we should do. And I basically come up with two things that people think we should do. Should our reaction be to rebel, start a revolution? Well, that's the first point, but this is definitely contrary to a scriptural example. Let's go to Jeremiah 29, verse 1. And I'm reading from the JPS Tanakh, since it's probably the version that most of you use. All right, starting in verse 1, it says, This is the text of the letter which the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to the priests, the prophets, the rest of the elders of the exiled community, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon. And then skipping down to verse 4. Thus says Yehovah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, to the whole community which I have exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there, do not decrease, and seek the welfare of the city to which I have exiled you, and pray to Jehovah on its behalf. For its prosperity you shall prosper. And then going to verse 20 in the same chapter. But you, the whole exile community, and this is later on where he gets questioned by a false prophet, Shemaiah, and but going to verse 20, he says, But you, the whole exile community, which I banished from Jerusalem to Babylon, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus says Jehovah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, concerning Ahab son of Kaliah and Zedekiah son of Messiah, who prophesies falsely to you in my name. I'm going to deliver them into the hands of the king of Babylon, hands of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and he shall put them to death before your eyes. And the whole community of Judah and Babylonia shall use a curse derived from the faith. May God make you like Zedekiah and Ahab, whom the king of Babylon consigned to the flames, because they did vile things in Israel and committed adultery with the wives of their fellows, and speaking in my name false words which I had not commanded them. I am he who knows and bears witness, declares Yahweh. Concerning Shimei the Nehelamite, you shall say, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, because you sent letters to your own name, in your own name, to all the people in Jerusalem, to Zephaniah son of Messiah, and to the rest of the priests as follows. Jehovah appointed you priest in the place of Jehoiada to exercise authority in the house of Yahweh over every madman who wants to play the prophet, to put him in the stocks and into the pillar. Now why have you not rebuked Jeremiah the Analythite, who praised the prophet among you? For he has actually sent a message to us in Babylon to this effect. Let me read that again. For he has actually sent a message to us in Babylon to this effect. It will be a long time. A long time. Kind of like us today, huh? A long time. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and enjoy their fruit. When the priest Zephaniah read the letter in the hearing of the prophet Jeremiah, the words of Jehovah came to Jeremiah, send a message to the entire exile community. Thus said Jehovah concerning Shemaiah the Nehelamite, because Shemaiah prophesied to you, though I did not send him and made you false promises, surely thus says Jehovah, I am going to punish Shemaiah the Nehelamite and his offspring. There shall be no man of his line dwelling among the people, or seeing the good things I am going to do for my people, declares Jehovah. For he has urged disloyalty toward Jehovah. Now that's the key. He has urged disloyalty. So in a way, if you take this to its context, is it urging disloyalty to think, if we compare ourselves in this present situation of our captivity, to do a message of Shemaiah and do something contradictory to what Jeremiah's overall message is, that we need to live in the land. And it's a possibility. Jeremiah tells the Judahites going to Babylon to build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat the fruit thereof. He did not say to start a revolution or rebel against the government of Babylon. He said to actually pray for Babylon. He's basically saying that we need to accept the captivity for the sins of our nation. Yahweh backs him up. Yahweh backs up Jeremiah against his accusers towards the end of this chapter. All right, that's the first thing we can do. The second thing we could do is we could do a quiet revolution. by not being part of the system. Now, I have a friend, some of us in this room know him, who won't get a driver's license, gave up his Social Security number, pays and receives everything in cash, gold, or silver, won't give his name if arrested, and won't do anything with the government. It's probably agreeable that his position is sincere but foolhardy. We cannot leave the system that easy without being in another form of captivity, because in my mind, that is a form of captivity. Again, this contradicts the example in Jeremiah 29. What does the Tanakh say is the key to be content in our captivity? How will Yehovah preserve us from being harmed in our current slavery? Because that's right. Look at our situation. There's slavery where no oppression, and then there's slavery with high oppression. We're in slavery that's getting greater oppression. But we've always been in exile or captivity. Because if we believe what the Tanakh, when we were banished from the land as Israelites, we then went into captivity. And really, even if we think we're not Israelites, which some of you might be thinking, well, the rest of the world is definitely in captivity in the sense of their ways of doing things. Because every form of government actually starts with a little freedom and then goes further into oppression. But all along, no one has really been able to have freedom to do what they want. Well, let's look at some scriptures here, because I think this will clear up everything. And I think that a very powerful scripture is in Psalms, or Telahim, 25, verse 21. And this is the verse that I'm going to build this whole, the rest of this speech on. And I'm actually quoting this from the King James Version because I feel like it uses a word which it uses actually the word natsar, which is in the BDB it's 5341. Natsar, if I pronounced that correctly for all you Hebrew people out there. But this verse says, "Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, because I wait for thee." Well, if you look at the word preserve, it means to guard, to watch over, keep. To watch, guard, keep, preserve, guard from dangers, to keep, observe, guard with fidelity, to guard, keep secret. So in a way, we're going to be preserved because of two things that are in this verse right before: integrity and uprightness. And the word for integrity is 8537. Tome. It's integrity, completeness, fullness, innocence, simplicity, integrity. And the word for uprightness is yosher. And that's 3476. And it means straightness, uprightness. Straightness, evenness, moral implications, rightness, uprightness, what is right, what is due. So basically, integrity and uprightness. Basically, some other words, innocence and rightness, completeness and evenness. That's the things, those are the two characteristics that will preserve us in this latter days. Because we all need the preservation in this day and age for where we are. And there is another word that I'll read. It's called shalom. It's 8003. And it means complete, safe, peaceful, perfect, whole, peace, full, at peace. Safe, keeping from being harmed. So our key to survival in this world is to have the integrity, perfection of heart, and to walk in uprightness. Yehovah looks on our heart to see if we have perfected it. So we need uprightness and integrity. And we're going to go through several verses now that we can look at and relate to our lives. And then we're going to come back to Jeremiah 29 to conclude this talk, because I think it'll all put it back in perspective. Because it is our heart. It is the perfection of our heart that will preserve us when the government continues to take away more of our liberties in this land, and that our oppression becomes greater and greater. So instead of becoming frustrated like I've become, don't become frustrated. Have that deep trust that Yehovah will protect you. And how will He protect you? If you have uprightness and integrity. So again, let's go through some verses here. I think it'll really help us to get a focal point on where we are in our lives. Because it's really not rocket science that what we need to do, but again, it's that deepness of knowing where our heart is before our fellow man, and especially before Yehovah. Let's start with 1 Kings, 1 Melachim, chapter 8, verse 61. Okay, 1 Kings 8, verse 61. Not 68, 61. I don't know if there's any 68. There you go. Thank you. Let your heart therefore be perfect. And that's peaceful. With Yahweh our Elohim, to walk in His statutes and keep His commandments as of this day. Okay, so then how is our heart perfect? It's part of the uprightness part of this. There's another word for the perfect there is uprightness. And that's that word that I quoted just earlier. Well, we need to walk in His statutes and commandments this day. And in 1 Kings 11:4, 1 Melachim 11:4, go down a few verses. It says, "For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with Jehovah his God, as was the heart of his father, as was with the heart of David his father." So David had a perfect heart. Even though David wasn't perfect in what he did sin, he had a perfect heart. And Yahweh, in many times, preserved David when Saul was trying to destroy David. But once Solomon turned his heart away, he lost the kingdom. Yahweh did not preserve the kingdom. So things are not preserved when there is no integrity and there is no uprightness. If we go to 1 Kings 15:14. In 1 Kings 15:14 it says, "But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, Asa's heart was perfect with Jehovah all his days." And again, Yahweh preserves Asa's kingdom. 2 Kings 20, verse 3. This is talking about Hezekiah. It says, "I beseech thee, O Jehovah, remember now how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight." And Hezekiah wept sore. So Hezekiah, the righteous king, had a perfect heart. And he did what was right. So he had uprightness and integrity. The two keys for our preservation, uprightness and integrity. And 1 Chronicles, chapter 12, verse 38. It says, "All these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel. And all the rest of Israel were of one heart to make David king." Then we go to 1 Chronicles 28:9. And thou, Solomon, my son, and this is kind of a repeat of earlier, but this is based upon Chronicles version. And thou, Solomon, my son, know thou by the Elohim of thy father, know them, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind, for Jehovah searches all hearts and understands all the imaginations of the thought. If thou seek him, he will be found of thee. But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever. Again, it's that preservation that we're looking for, that preservation in this day and age. How are we preserved? By having a perfect heart, having uprightness and integrity. First Chronicles 29, verse 9. It says, Then the people rejoiced, for that they offered willingly, because with perfect heart they offered willing to Jehovah, and David the king also rejoiced with great joy. In 1 Chronicles 29:19. And give unto Solomon my son a perfect heart, to keep thy commandments, thy testimonies, and thy statutes, and do all these things, and to build the place for that which I have made provision, so that we can keep the temple going through as well. 2 Chronicles 15:17. But the high places were not taken away out of Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was perfect all his days. Again, that's another version. And 2 Chronicles 16:9. For the eyes of Jehovah run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Herein thou hast done foolishly, therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. I believe this is an example that shows to David, this was an example to David in the context there, that if you have a perfect heart, he will be strong for you. He will preserve you. 2 Chronicles 19:9. And he charged him, saying, Thus shall you do in the fear of Jehovah, faithfully and with a perfect heart. Okay? 2 Chronicles, and I'm just going to read a few more verses here because I think I'm making the point here. 2 Chronicles 25:2. And he did that which was right in the sight of Jehovah, but not with a perfect heart. Again, it's the heart that matters. In Psalms 101, verse 2. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. O will thou come unto me. I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. In Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah 38, verse 3, and said, Remember now, O Jehovah, I beseech thee, how I walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart. Again, he's talking about Hezekiah here. And I've done that which is good in thy sight. In Hezekiah what? Store. Now let's look at a few verses here about being upright. Go to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 20, verse 5. Said he not to himself, this is 20 verse 5, said he not himself unto me, She is my sister, and she herself said, He is my brother. In the simplicity of my heart and the innocency of my hands have I done this. And Elohim said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that in the simplicity of thy heart thou hast done this, and I have also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Again, he preserved, he kept this sin from happening, because Abraham did not let him know that she was, or that Sarah was was his life. I think I read this verse already before, 1 Kings 9:4. Maybe I didn't. And as for thee, if thou wilt walk before me, and this is kind of a charge for us today. If thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness. Again, this is the two things we're looking at, right? Isn't this the two exact same things that were in the Psalm 25:21 that we started with? It says, again, as for thee, if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and will keep my statutes and my ordinances. That's a great summary of what I've just gone through here. So again, integrity of heart, integrity and uprightness. Psalms 7:8. O Yehovah, who ministers judgment to the peoples, judge me, O Yehovah, according to my righteousness and according to my integrity that is in me. So in these times, we want to be judged by our righteousness and our integrity. And in Psalms 26, verse 1, judge me, O Yehovah, for I have walked in mine integrity, and I have trusted in your law without wavering. And in chapter 26, verse 11, just going down a few verses here. But as for me, I will walk in mine integrity. Redeem me and be gracious to me. Be gracious unto me. In Psalms 41:12, and as for me, thou holdest me because of mine integrity, and setst me before thy face forever. And another way to say that is he preserves us. He preserves us because of our integrity. Psalm 78, verse 72. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and he leads them by the skillfulness of his hands. Psalms 101, verse 2. Oh, Joseph, I'm reading from JPS Tanakh. Hope that matches your version. I use the JPS Tanakh because most people are using that today, even though I don't know if that's the perfect version. I'm fine with the King James Version, actually. Psalm 101:2. Oh, the new JPS? All right, I'll have to check into that. Psalm 101, verse 2. I will give heed unto the way of integrity. Oh, when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk within my house in my integrity of my heart. Just a few more verses here, because I think this is good to feed into us, to inculcate in our minds. Proverbs 2:7. Mishlei 2:7. He layeth up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to them that walk in integrity. Again, he is a shield. And even in this day of captivity, even in all the things that go wrong in this nation, he is a shield to us that walk in integrity. He will preserve us. Mishlei 10:9. He that walks uprightly walks securely, but he that perverts his ways shall be found out. Again, that walking uprightly, walks securely. Proverbs 10:29, Mishlei 10:29. The way of Yehovah is a stronghold to the upright, but ruin to the workers of iniquity. Proverbs 13:6. Righteousness guards him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. So another word here, guarded. I didn't check up the Hebrew word for that word guarded, but I'm sure it's probably similar to the word preserved that I quoted earlier. Proverbs 19:1. Better the poor that walks in the integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and a fool at the same time. Proverbs 27. He that walks in his integrity as a just man, happy are his children after him. So not only does he preserve you, if you're just, you walk with integrity and upright, but he preserves your children. They're happy and secure. Because isn't that the key? Your future generations? Proverbs 28:6. Better is the poor that walks in his integrity than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich. Now let's look at a few other verses here in the law, in the Torah. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 5. Now this is a very interesting scripture, because he really knew the nation of Israel at the time. Because he knew that, in a way, he says, some would say, well, this is not for thy righteousness or for the uprightness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations, Jehovah thy Elohim does drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which Jehovah sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And basically, you could look at it two different ways here. You could say, well, it didn't matter. You could say, well, it didn't matter what uprightness they had. No, that's not what it's saying, because they probably didn't have enough to uprightness because they were always complaining to Jehovah. But it was really that the wickedness of the other nations was so great that he had to remove them. They had no integrity. And you know what? They were not preserved. The other nations were not preserved in the land of Canaan. And most nations will not be preserved that do not have integrity and uprightness. And that's one of the reasons why probably this nation will not be preserved, because we have no integrity or uprightness. We have lacked the faith of the God of our fathers, the Elohim of our fathers. 1 Kings 9:4. And if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked in the integrity, I read this before, but I'm going to drive it home, in the integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee. I'm going to read 1 Chronicles 29:17 one more time. I know also, my Elohim, that thou hast tried the heart and hast pleasure in uprightness. As for me, in the uprightness of my heart, I have willingly offered all these things, and now have seen with joy thy people, which are present here, to offer willingly unto thee. Jehovah wants to preserve his people in front of him, who have the heart, have the integrity and the uprightness, because he sees the joy in his people because they do this, and he has joy in preserving them and having them around. Psalms 119, verse 7. I will praise thee with uprightness of heart, when I shall have learned thy righteous judgment. Proverbs 2:13. Which is the opposite. Who leaves the path of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness? We can't, in this day and age, you cannot walk in the ways of darkness anymore. We have to walk in the paths of uprightness. Initially, Proverbs 4:11. I have taught thee in the way of wisdom, and I have led thee in the right paths, the upright paths. That's that 34:76 that I brought up earlier. Proverbs 11:24. There is that scatters and yet increases, and there is that withhold more than is meet, but it tends to poverty. And that word meet there, 34:76, which again, Yoshua means uprightness. Proverbs 14:2. He that walks in his uprightness, Yoshua, fears Jehovah, but he is perverse in his ways, despises him. Proverbs 17:26. And to punish the just is not good, nor to strike princes for uprightness. And then finally, we have Ecclesiastes 12:10. Says the preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even the words of truth. So those are quite a number of examples there that I think drive home that we need to have uprightness and integrity. And as I said in the beginning, we're going to go back to Jeremiah 29 verses 10 through 14. And let's do that, because I think that is a good way to summarize what we're talking about. Jeremiah chapter 29 verses 10 through 14. I skipped this part when I read the chapter 29 before, because I knew I was going to come back and summarize this message. But I think it's apropos that here Jeremiah is telling the people, the exiled Judahites, that they need to build houses and live in them, to plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them, to have children and prosper in the land. And in this same chapter, he says in verse 10, and thus says, and this is what Yehovah is saying, he says, when Babylon's 7 years are over, as well as think of it today, when our captivity is over in this nation, we're back, restored to Israel, Eretz Israel, I will take note of you, and I will fulfill to you my promise of favor, to bring you back to this place. For I am mindful of the plans I have made concerning you, declares Jehovah. Plans for your welfare, not for disaster, to give you a hopeful future. When you call me and come and pray to me, I will give heed to you. You will search for me and find me, if only you seek me wholeheartedly, with the whole heart, with a perfect heart, with integrity, with uprightness. I will be at hand for you, declares Jehovah, and I will restore your fortunes, and I will gather you from all the nations, from all the places to which I have banished you, declares Jehovah, and I will bring you back to the place which I have exiled you. He will preserve us. He will preserve His remnant. He will preserve us and take us back to the land. And I think that's what we can look at if we have integrity of heart, uprightness of heart. He will preserve us. And as in a closing note, I'm not going to go through this now, but you might want to look at Psalms chapter 12, verse 1, verses 6 through 7, and then in chapter 31, verse 23, and 32:7, because I think they're as powerful as ever. So, again, I enjoy this, and I'm opening up the room for any questions. You guys have any questions?
Sorry about that. I'm interested in what you believe versus you. You think that that was right when he says, okay, Negro, is that what you learned? You actually feel like you're doing something wrong.
Ask me to repeat the question. Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, my speaker wasn't up. Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, my speaker wasn't up.
I was just commenting on the guy, that screamed, don't tase me, bro, the guy that actually got up in front of Terry and ended up asking him a question. We saw it was he tried to do his freedom of speech and did it very loudly. And I agree with it. He didn't come out fairly and explain what actually happened. I was just wondering if you thought that was integrity or whatever. I think it was pretty great. That's integrity. And he broke up the base and I think he did very well. I don't think he hurt himself at all.
Are you talking about the student at University? Are you talking about the student at University of Florida that did this? Because I mean, he had a whole heart to do what he did, but I was just mainly using this that the nation we don't have. Yeah, okay. Yes, I think he was doing what he felt was best, and for what he went through and to be in prison or in jail overnight and to be tased and handcuffed and for doing all that, I was totally wrong. And but I think what I was just trying to show in my message was that we really don't have free speech. And if we say things that are too inflammatory, we're going to get tased in different ways. We'll have things taken away from us. Does that kind of help you out?
No, I completely disagree. He's actually out there and he's trying to inform the people, which is good. It's like helping your brother or neighbor, right? And what he ended up doing was he ended up getting tased and he ended up getting sent to jail overnight, but he ended up creating this message. And he's had a whole bunch of people in a little bit of an uproar, and it's all peaceful thing. Everything that happens are very peaceful, and I think that's absolutely wonderful that they can give you a person that comes with his rights. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. I see what the police did absolutely wrong. The police are actually starting to wake up and okay, I'm going to read all this stuff.
Okay, let me just say this to you. I agree with what he did with his whole heart, but it wasn't wise or prudent in what he did. He had a right to do what he did according to the laws of this country, but it wasn't wise what he did. Because he should realize that there's an unwritten rule that you cannot speak against a presidential candidate. Though I don't know if he was really speaking against John Kerry, because John Kerry wanted to answer the question. But these guys, especially Hillary Clinton, they don't want to hear anything, or Bush, or any, I'm not Democrat or Republican, I'm just saying, they don't really want to be challenged in public like that. And if you realize what you're dealing with, and he in a way was doing either a quiet revolution, like I was talking about, or an outright revolution, but he wasn't doing an outright revolution, he was just quiet revolution, speaking out, okay? But the point I'm trying to make here, yeah, he never ran, he just screamed. Yes, I understand. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that we, as believers in the Tanakh, should be looking at a different plan, a different way to get out of the mess that we're in. And the other way to get out of the mess that we're in is to have integrity of heart and uprightness. Because that will preserve us. That is the message that I'm at. I don't want to focus too much on this kid from the University of Florida. He was young, brash. He didn't do anything wrong, correct. But he wasn't wise, because you got to know who you're dealing with. It's kind of like you don't deal with, you deal with snakes, you're going to get bit. Okay? Later on this week, I'm going to have a message on, I think it's Thursday. Okay? If you don't deal with credit card companies, because you know you're going to get bit. Okay? You don't deal with people who want to enslave you. You avoid the people or things that are going to do this. Okay? So that's my point. Try to be circumspect, wise in the age that you're living at. And the way that we're going to be delivered to the land and be protected is if we look at the two traits that preserve us, uprightness and integrity. That's my point, Bill.
Washington?
Well,
continuity?
I have a disagreement with what you believe is integrity. Okay, so let's talk about how one person will stand up to 10 and 10 will stand up to 100. That's somewhere in the Tanakh as well, right? I can't remember exactly where that's at. You talked about how David was someone with a full heart. David stood up to Goliath. Okay, and he also, he hit the gate and he did his thing and he ended up moving his way up. He ended up helping out people in a very powerful way, very stand-up way. And